Welcome back to my X-Men series. For those of you who are new here, I'm going through each of the X-Men movies and reviewing them one by one. This is coinciding with both the series' 20th anniversary and the release of the final film of the franchise, The New Mutants, which is out now, and I haven't seen it yet, but hopefully soon. Let me know what you think of the X-Men movies in the comments below, and make sure to give this a thumbs up if you like these reviews. It helps me out immensely if you do that. I already reviewed the first 5 movies in the franchise, and I'll leave a link to the playlist in the description in case you missed them. And if you're new here, please consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with my reviews of the rest of the series, as well as some new releases. But now, let's talk about the 6th film in the franchise, The Wolverine. This sees Hugh Jackman return once more as Wolverine, now living as a hermit in Canada, while haunted by the death of Jean Grey, played by Famke Janssen. He's tracked down by a mutant named Yukio, played by Rila Fukushima, who brings him to Japan to say goodbye to a dying friend of his. However, he soon gets wrapped up in a bigger conspiracy that involves both the Yakuza and some sinister mutants. I'm not gonna lie, at the time, I was a bit skeptical towards this movie. In fact, I remember a lot of people were really iffy on this one going into it. X-Men Origins Wolverine left such a bad taste in everyone's mouth, rightfully so, that no one exactly trusted another one being made. Especially just as how that film went through some troubles during production, this had some issues of its own in the development stages, mainly due to not being able to land a director. For the longest time, Darren Aronofsky was actually lined up to direct this, before bowing out due to the long-term commitment it required of him being out of the country. Fox went through a number of directors before going with James Mangold, and I just want to say, James Mangold is hands down one of the most underrated directors out there. You don't hear his name come up that often, but movies of his such as Walk the Line and 3:10 to Yuma are great, as was last year's Ford v Ferrari. And he does a very good job here. This is a major step up from X-Men Origins, mainly because this did the job that Origins should have done. Origins marketed itself as a solo Wolverine movie, but really was another team-up movie and lacked the heart and soul that made both X-Men 1 and 2 compelling. This actually centers extensively on Wolverine and gives him the compelling story he deserves, thanks to a great screenplay by Mark Baumbach and Scott Frank. While we get to see Wolverine once again be a badass like he was in all the other movies, this is, up until this point, the most emotional and nuanced arc of his. And it does a better job of diving just a bit more into Wolverine's history than Origins. A big criticism of Origins was that it ignored years of Wolverine's history fighting in all these wars, from the Civil War to the 2 World Wars. Here, this little bit of backstory ties directly into the main story. We get a chilling opening scene of him saving a young soldier named Ichiro's life from the atomic bombing of Nagasaki, and sees his powers on full display, showing how much he can withstand and then simply regenerate. And we see a little more how, even though he's able to put these powers to good use, how they affect his own well-being. He views his powers as nothing more than a curse. He's lived hundreds of years, and he knows he'll outlive all of his other friends. He'll have nothing left to fight for. But he hates these powers so much that he never wished this upon everyone else, which is why he rejects Ichiro's offer when he asks him to transfer his powers over to him. We also see a romance develop between Wolverine and Ichiro's granddaughter Mariko, played by Tao Okamoto, and that was actually a pretty well done storyline. The chemistry between Jackman and Okamoto was great. The progression felt natural, and it tied in well with another of Wolverine's arcs, which is trying to get over the death of Jean Grey, who we'll see in dream sequences and hallucinations. This gave a more emotional context to The Last Stand, which was nice, as my biggest issue with that movie was that it wasn't as compelling of an experience as the first 2 movies were. While that film lacked the depth of other X-Men movies, this circled back and added much more meaning to it by showing us the fallout from it, instead of its lasting legacy being just this fun, dumb blockbuster. This definitely goes back to the more grounded feel that the first 2 X-Men movies were known for. It still has a somewhat campier, sillier side, mainly in the last act, but for the most part, it goes back to having a much darker color palette, maybe just a tad brighter than the first 2 movies were, and there was an overall grittier feel to this, though still containing a sense of humor, filled with Wolverine's usual quips, mainly with Yukio, who is by far my favorite of the new characters. Her power allows her to see exactly when someone's going to die, which is used in some fairly emotional moments, but there are a few times early on when a character is in danger, and she still remains calm and so laid back about a seemingly urgent situation because she knows everything will be fine. And because of the skepticism over her powers, the contrast between her and Jackman would be fun. Rila Fukushima's performance was a lot of fun, and she was one of my favorite performances in this movie. And Jackman once again shines as Wolverine. He shifts from funny to cool to heartbreaking seamlessly, and the material in this solo film matches his performance much better than his last solo film. And Mangold's direction is on point. The shots are exceptionally well done here. The cinematography is stunning, really capturing the landscapes of both the cities and villages in Japan. The fights are a lot of fun too. Even though there are mutants involved, most of the fights we see consist of hand-to-hand combat between Wolverine and the Yakuza henchmen, as well as some sword fights that were choreographed really well. As for criticisms, I don't have too many. This isn't the most beloved X-Men movie, and I heard a lot of people who take issues with the final act not matching the tone of the rest of the movie. I really didn't have as big of a problem with it. There's a much heavier emphasis on CGI here, but really it's not that bad. By this point, the CGI has gotten a lot better than what we're used to seeing in the first couple of X-Men movies, and it holds up well. If anything, my my main issue with the final act is that you can see it kind of coming from a mile away. It's treated as this big twist and it involves tricking Yukio. I just feel she's someone who's otherwise portrayed as very intelligent and knows what she's doing, so for her to fall for this twist, or at least not question it, felt more just out of convenience than anything. I also didn't feel the villains were all that memorable. One of them is Ichiro's son Shingen, who has this contempt for both his own daughter as well as Yukio, and there's this subplot about who's going to take over for the family, but the way he's treated, he feels more like this afterthought. He's often sidelined for the mutant Viper, who also acts as Ichiro's doctor, and she tries taking Wolverine's powers early on. She's more the main villain we see here, and anytime we go back to Shingen, it felt more like, oh yeah, this guy exists too. But truthfully, Viper wasn't that great of a villain either. We see a fair amount of her, she's pulling the strings for the most part, and the acting's fine, but her character isn't given much of a personality, truthfully. Other than that she's cold-hearted and evil, and she says threatening things, and she has no use for anyone, she was kind of bland to be honest. Overall, this is a very good film, and the most underrated of all the X-Men movies. It's not perfect by any means, feeling predictable in some areas, mainly the ending, but it's well acted with another standout performance from Hugh Jackman. It's well directed, contains excellent cinematography and well choreographed fight scenes, and has a compelling story that gives Wolverine the first proper solo outing he deserves. The Wolverine gets an 8 out of 10. Up next, X-Men Days of Future Past, the ultimate X-Men team-up movie where the old and the new collide. I'm really looking forward to discussing that, so stay tuned for that, along with more 2020 reviews coming soon. So let me know, did you see the Wolverine or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you like the action? Did you like the story? And what's one of your favorite Hugh Jackman performances outside the X-Men movies? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll catch you next time.